Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Plan Commission meeting for May 17th. Before we begin, let me just say that the Plan Commission is an advisory board to the Board of Trustees. The decisions that we make tonight is strictly an advisory level to the board. Our decision is not final. These cases will go before the Board of Trustees sometime in the near future. They meet on the first and third Mondays of every month. Those of you who wish a copy of my report and wish to be notified when these cases go before the board, there's a sign-up sheet over there. Just give us your name and address and we will notify you. First order of business is the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Commissioner Mitchell, second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. First case tonight, they're all related, but we need to hear the first case, which is the zoning chapter amendment. Once we get that approved, then we can go on to the other cases. So the first case tonight is case 2018-11P, zoning chapter amendment for road material recycling. Is the petitioner here? Yeah. Okay. Gentlemen, could I have your name and your address, please?
My name is Bernard Citron of the law firm of Thompson Colburn, with addresses at 55 East Monroe, 37th floor, Chicago 60602, and I represent the applicant this evening on all these cases.
Thank you. Sir?
I'm Tim Winter. I'm with Pell Group. I represent Builders Asphalt applicant. My address is 321 Center Street, Hillside, Illinois.
Okay, since you're not an attorney, I will swear you in. Okay, do you affirm that the testimony you give tonight is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth to help you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and is there notice in order?
It's going to be. I just wanted to ask counsel, I know I have the service list here, and I just wanted you to state on the record as an officer of the court that notice was mailed between 15 and 45 days before today's date.
Notice was done under my supervision, and I directed my paralegal to take care of that and confirm that it was done within the required time periods prior to today's hearing.
Very good. Then all the associated cases, the notice is proper and correct.
One notice, I believe one notice went out for covering all of them, or I don't,
That's right, yeah.
because we combined all four cases.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. So in this case, you're asking for a zoning chapter amendment for Builders Asphalt, request an amendment to the zoning chapter of the Village Code to add a definition for road material recycling to section 118-32 and to amend Appendix X, A, the use table to make road material recycling a special use in an M3 industrial district. So,
The purpose of this is to really codify something that actually has been going on at this site for many, many years, as Tim will talk about when we go through our specific project. One, we have been recycling material on this site. It was not a use that was specifically called out as an allowable use or a special use. In the case, this is a special use. What we've proposed to do is to hopefully have this approved as a special use in conjunction with similar uses, i.e. an asphalt plant, which is what we operate there. But this has become more and more necessary, this recycling. For instance, IDOT requires road contractors to use recycled material. It is a requirement of their specifications. As you'll hear more later from Tim, Builders Asphalt is the contractor or the provider for a road resurfacing program in the village of Skokie today, ongoing today, and they are recycling. You recycle the concrete, you break it up, and it then becomes the road base. So instead of digging out road base out of quarries and then trucking it, in these cases, farther and farther, could be 50 miles, could be 70 miles, bringing it up, bringing it to a site, working with it then, and then putting it back in the ground, and then you have a second step. What do you do with the older material? Why not just recycle the curb material and put it back in the ground? So these are requirements now. These are not something we're doing. Yes, it is environmentally sound to do this, but we're doing this because it's a requirement in specifications, not just for IDOT, but in other specifications. So it is part and parcel of what we do at this site. We've always handled aggregate which is what a lot of this material is, or we recycle the asphalt itself. Again, that is a requirement, to not just create or truck in new asphalt. We recycle what's there.
In the asphalt, I know the asphalt is a petroleum-based product. Is there anything in the asphalt that is toxic or hazardous that
It-
can't be recycled? Okay,
No, sir.
so it's all recyclable?
It's
without
all
the has-
recyclable.
Yes, sir.
Literally, you recycle 100%
Yes, sir.
of what you pull out of, what you grind off the road if it's asphalt, and you can recycle almost 100% of the curbs and other concrete work.
Any questions of the petitioner? Okay,
Thank you.
anything else? We'll have the staff present its report.
Thank you.
Okay. After the staff presents its report, I will ask petitioner to come back up and for further review, further questioning, and then I will open up the floor to anyone in the audience who wishes to ask a question or have a comment on this case. Pete?
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Staff asks that the report be accepted into the record as written.
Yes, so approved.
The staff worked closely with the petitioners to come up with this definition for recycling of materials. The petitioners came in 2 years ago and got a special use permit, or a site plan approval, for changing out their equipment that was antiquated, and they modernized the facilities. At that time, we didn't know that the rock recycling, crushing, and work was being done, and so it was missed on the site plan. There was no indication of it. We saw that they were using it temporarily on the south end over by Howard Street, and that was, for some road construction work at the time, and we didn't know that was a permanent operation. So we thought that this would be an appropriate amendment, and it's very simple. Road material recycling means a general process that crushes or grinds recycled material and/or road materials, allowing for its incorporation in concrete or asphalt production and any associated machinery which must have a permanent power and foundations. So we're looking at this really in conjunction with an existing asphalt plant. There's only one in Skokie, and that we're not allowing portable equipment. It has to be permanently affixed.
Okay. So I remember that case a couple of years ago, and at that time, you say that the staff was not aware that they're recycling at that time, or were just maybe not knowledgeable of the process?
We were knowledgeable that there was processing going on the south end. There were piles of materials being recycled, but there's also a lot of road construction going on. And it's quite common to allow a site for construction purposes, for, staging of vehicles, materials, things like that. So we thought it was a temporary operation. And then we saw this is also state permitted. So we saw the state permit come through and realized that this recycling operation was also being taken care of, and indicated to the petitioners that it wasn't shown on their site plan.
Okay.
And at that time, they came in and filed for all the current cases.
Okay. So we're just bringing them into compliance?
That's right.
Okay. Or we're just updating our amendment?
That's right.
Okay. Any questions of staff?
One question. I'm in favor of this amendment. However, why is it necessary? Why isn't this covered by our already existing code that says asphalt processing? Isn't this just a process of asphalt processing
Well,
or asphalt manufacturer?
I guess you might be able to say that, but on the other hand, well, first off, the site plan doesn't show those facilities. At the time, they were not south of the tracks, and so they needed a special use permit for that. Plus, the overall site changed, so we thought we might as well make it clear what's actually being taken place at the site. They're not only making asphalt, but they're recycling materials.
And then the follow-up, this is not a limiting then, this is an expansion. It's
Yes.
expanding geographically, but it's also an expansion in definitions. They can do everything we allowed them to do before, plus this new thing.
That's right.
Okay.
Any other questions of the staff? Okay. Counselor, would you please step up?
Thank you.
So you see the staff report, you listen to our conversation. Is there anything you want to add or anything you
I think staff covered it.
conflict with? No
I think
conflict?
staff covered it. It's been very cooperative in trying to look at this. I mean, again, we're an asphalt plant, but we also recycle concrete, so that's part of why this definition is a little bit of an expansion. The village has been very careful in terms of their special uses and as processing this, and we're happy to ask for this because then we know no one can come to us later. Hopefully, if it does get approved, I don't want to be presumptuous and count votes before votes happen, but we're happy to see this. If it does go through, then we know we're doing everything in the proper manner, and we're doing it in accordance with what now the code says.
Okay.
But thank you.
Right, thank you. At this time, is there anybody in the audience who wish to comment or have a question on the zoning chapter amendment case? Not at this time? Okay. Okay. On the zoning chapter amendment, case 2018-11P, I am open for a motion. Commissioner Mitchell and Commissioner Berman.
Motion to approve, I'm assuming?
Yes. Okay. Any further discussion? No? Call for the vote. Commissioner Mitchell?
Aye.
Commissioner Quain?
Aye.
Commissioner Berman?
Aye.
Commissioner Velages?
Aye.
Commissioner Paradise is absent. Commissioner Lexpati?
Aye.
Commissioner Jeff Berman is absent. Commissioner Matei?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. Motion approves. There you go. Okay, now we have the next four cases, which are pretty much related. Well, since we got the zoning chapter amendment approved, we can move on to the four cases. And I am going to probably ask if you wish to present them all in the whole package, and maybe go over everything. I will call out the cases though. Next, we have case 2018-12P, which is site plan approval. Case 2018-13P, which is the parking determination. Case 2018-14P, special use, this is at 3219 Oakton Street. And case 2018-15P, a special use permit for 3219 Oakton and 3240 Howard. And finally, 2018-16P, site plan approval for, what's this? 9504 Lowell? Howell? Separate, oh, it's a separate case. Okay, I'm sorry. So we have those cases.
Thank you again, Bernard
Yes.
Citrin of Thompson Coburn, with the address previously given, and Mr. Tim Winter, who's already been sworn in
Yes.
for Builders
And-
Asphalt.
And the notice has been approved.
Yes.
Okay.
It's the same
Would you give us an overview of your site plan and
So
the request for the special use
it really
permits?
comes down to a few requests here. One, again, because the original site plan didn't indicate this recycling operation, this machinery in its location or its use, we're seeking to amend the special use to allow for that. That's number one. It's been there, you've heard that testimony. I would ask that the testimony in the prior case be adopted as the testimony as part of this case, so the record is clear on that.
Yes.
Two, and this is what this map, and I apologize, as this map isn't showing up too well. Tim, want to be my Vanna? Point it out? Thank you. Our site goes all the way to the north on the property. What we've done, and I will tell you, it was a very arduous process, is we've now leased, oh, you have a better map? Yeah, because ours is.
Sideways.
Oh, well, we'll put it sideways.
Yeah.
It was an arduous process. It took, I don't know, a year and a half, maybe? We have leased 2 additional parcels of land from MWRD. As you're aware, MWRD owns a large portion of the land along the river. We went through the full process, which they offer it for bid. They offer it for other people, and because we are immediately adjacent, I'm sure that's one of the reasons no one else bid for this. But what it is it's basically a parcel just north and south of the Yellow Line tracks. And by the way, that was a grave concern with MWRD, is they didn't want to get into an issue with the CTA again, and I don't have to relive past issues of this village. So what that is being used for is basically storage of aggregate and storage of materials. We're not going to put a machine over there. We're just going to store.
South of the tracks is mostly going to be truck turnaround.
So it's even then, we're not even storing south of the track, it's just to be able to move the trucks around. But because we are moving aggregate, especially to that piece just north of the tracks, that requires its own special use because it's storage of material. We're expanding that special use that was granted before, which is the outdoor storage of material. Now, it's pretty hard to even find this property, having walked it myself, so we're hoping that you take that into account in terms of when you're looking at this. Now, one of the things that the MWRD has required us to do is to keep the screening along the river, not mess with their trees and everything else. So I think that's an advantage of this. So they're already looking at those issues on it. Last but not least was because we've now added, or we're seeking to add a use, again, I don't want to count my votes before, but because we're seeking to add that use, the recycling use, all of your uses in your ordinance has a parking number attached to it. If you have this use, like for instance retail, it's so many parking spaces. So we formally had to ask for a parking determination. Now our proposal is, since this use is only in conjunction with an operating plant, that there really doesn't need to be any additional parking. Effectively, you don't want these as standalone. Again, that's why the ordinance, or the proposed ordinance is written the way it is these are not standalone recycling operations. And that's not what you really want in town. That's where you get into some complaints because you'll put one in the middle of a parking lot next to residential and people will be doing that. So this is on our site, but because of that, it's our employees. The employees who are already operating our facility, they'll operate this operation. So our proposal is that we don't supply any additional parking for this use, again, because it's always in conjunction with another thing. Now, we actually, as our site plan, and we have a revised site plan shows us, we actually have more parking than would otherwise be required under the prior determination. With that, Tim is here. I don't know if you want to add to that. You can. If not, you're here to answer any questions.
I think we're here to answer questions.
Okay. Now, you've discussed the screening along the water reclamation district. How about the screening along by the trail?
The bike, I don't know if there is. The bike trail's on the other side of the river. We're not even,
Oh, that's right, you are.
the bike
Okay.
trail is
I see,
over-
I see.
but yeah, the bike trail is up along.
Yeah, that's
more
right,
along
okay.
McCormick. We're probably 200 feet, I don't know, 150, 200 feet from
Yeah.
the bike trail. And that's why this screening is more important along our property, because you don't want to necessarily, you've done a magnificent job along that trail.
Prior to the previous time we were here, I did walk up down that trail, McCormick, with the old plant.
Yeah.
You could maybe see the top of our silos, and we're no higher now, so you can't see our everyday operation.
Right.
There's only a slight little spot in the winter when leaves are down, but it's all that growth there really covers us up pretty good.
Okay, Paul. One last question. Is there, since you're moving material back and forth, do you create a lot of dust?
That's a good question. There is dust created because this is aggregate. But however, we do have sprayers out there. We do have a water truck out on the property, and we have done some paving on the property, which helps keep the dust down. So when you're traveling on the gravel, that creates it. But we have water sprayers out there to keep the dust from becoming airborne. Because the dust does cause problems to all of our equipment, too.
Now, granted, you've got sand, you got dust. Anything, I'm sure the Water Reclamation District's probably concerned about anything washing down into
Yes,
the
they
river.
are.
Oh, yes.
Yes, they are. They are concerned. They put a couple requirements on us to make sure we keep all our aggregate. I believe it's 20 feet away from the top of the bank. So that's just all driving areas along the top of the bank. And once the aggregate's sitting there in the piles, it has enough moisture in it that it's not going to slide. And we got machines out there all day making sure the piles are contained. Because if they start getting too close to the slope, that means we're losing aggregate that we've
Yeah.
purchased. And that's not a good thing for us.
Okay, Commissioner Coyne?
Those are my questions, the environmental impact. Thank
Oh,
you.
okay. Any questions?
A couple questions.
Yes,
Why the triangle, I know that's left over right away from the Chicago Northwestern to the west of McCormick?
That's a little bit of a overdone what we have. Excuse me, Bernie.
No, not that-
Our line kind of stops right here,
Oh, yes?
and here. This parcel, this triangle, and this down here
Yeah.
is not what we have.
Huh.
All this right there is leased from MWD, and this is what Builders Asphalt owns.
So you do not lease that triangle, nor
No.
you-
No.
nor that rectangle below it?
No, sir.
Okay.
That's our dividing line, right there.
Or over the.
I'll ask Peter, the village, why they put that in the map. The other question had to do with the gravel on which you ride every day, the dust and gravel. Was there any thought of paving, since you're a paving company, was there any thought of paving that undersurface to keep the dust and the runoff down?
We did not, because this is in the back of the yard, and the dust is down there. We have paved closer up to Oakton Street, where, before it gets onto the road, to make sure we trap it before it doesn't get onto Oakton Street. In the back, we rather keep it unpaved because of the equipment and everything's on there. It can get beat up a little bit more because of the heavy equipment back there.
And then why is the address all the way from Howard to Oakton? Going back to these rectangles again.
It's a goofy thing with, Oakton Street is our address, because that's where our entrance is. With the piece south of the CTA tracks, MWD is very concerned about us being across underneath the CTA tracks, which we are just finalizing our agreement with them to cross underneath there. There is a driveway that goes down to Howard Street, right by the Jewel traffic signal. You don't want to use that. That's scary to pull out of there. But they made us have that there just in case we can't cross under, for we still have access to the property. We don't plan to use it. We don't want to use it. It's not a.
So you have an address to Howard if you want that access, but that's not your intention.
No, it's
The
our address
parking
is-
lot immediately to your south, that's the religious assembly, that's the
Yes.
church's parking lot to the
Yes, sir.
west of the Jewel.
Yes,
Not
sir.
yours.
Not ours.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions of the petitioner? Okay, I think, do you have anything else to add before I ask the? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Pete? You're up. I just want to remind everybody that the parking determination, we will be the final decision on the parking determination. The park determination will not go to the board.
Well, thank you. Excuse me. Tonight, I'm basically the reporter. These were written by others, and so I'm giving those reports. I'd like all of the reports to be accepted into the record as written. I do have an amendment to the site plan approval ordinance and also to, or a recommendation, and also to 2018-15P, the special use for material storage.
Okay, well, why don't you, we'll take the, your amendments one at a time.
Okay. Well, the first one is a site plan approval, and we went through this basically. The reason that we're requesting it was that the rock crushing equipment and the storage area was not included in the previous site plan approval, so it's being amended to pick up those things. And I don't think the petitioner showed it, but the rock crushing equipment is right here, so it's in the middle of the site. It's away from everything, it's not a problem for anybody, and so it shouldn't cause any issues being approved. And then down here, it shows that there's aggregate storage. Right now, there is stuff out there, so I suppose in the operation in the future, it may just be for truck turnaround. But the special use permit case, which is 2018 and 14P, is actually for that purpose of allowing the expansion of the outdoor storage.
That's just for the storage.
Yes.
Okay.
On the site plan approval request, the amendment is really to amend the site plan. I don't have the latest one, but what the change was is that there's some parking way up here on the north side of the site, and that's being moved to north of the facility, and then also there's an area next to the building over here where there's also going to be placed parking. So it's actually closer. Okay, so they've already made the amendment. And enlarge this here. So you can see it. Here it is north of the building, and here it is next to the building. So it's actually more convenient for the employees. So staff recommends approval of the site plan approval based on positive findings of fact and the recommendations. The parking determination is required for this use because if there is a use in the zoning ordinance that does not have an initial parking requirement or a standard one, then it needs to go through the parking determination process. In this case, all the employees who are currently at the site will operate the equipment, so there really is no parking need or demand. In case 2018-14P, that's a special use permit for the road material recycling, and that's basically to operate the equipment that I previously showed you. If you look at the aerials, you'll see some kind of equipment on the south side, but it looks like an auger just to throw more aggregate on top of the pile, but the actual rock crushing occurs north of the tracks.
Okay.
Then in case, the last one here is 2015, or 1815P, and that's for the storage, which I mentioned. And inside, this was an amendment to the previous special use for the outdoor storage. And there was a condition number 7 that states that no construction material or liquids associated with the production of asphalt shall be permitted to be stored within an area to the north of the asphalt production equipment at the 3219 Oakton Street property. We found out, petitioners indicated to us that that has always been the case, that they've always stored up there, and we've looked at historical maps and we found that it was the case, and we would like this condition to be struck. All this storage is behind a fence along Oakton Street, and that fence has slats in it, and there's also landscaping to the north of the fence, so that the storage really has no negative impact on anything. So, again, we're recommending approval based on positive findings of fact and recommended conditions.
Okay. Any questions of staff?
Couple of questions.
Yes.
Why those extra yellow triangles and rectangles, Peter, that seem not to be in the area that the petitioner wants?
Well, being the reporter here, I can only guess. Oftentimes, we find that especially when we work with ComEd, MWRD, what else? CTA, we find that the parcels go across streets, lines, whatever. And there might be a common PIN number, there might be something that ties them together. I couldn't tell you. Mike could tell you exactly what the issue was, but that's usually the case. In the case here, we see McCormick Boulevard. We assume that's really IDOT. It's an IDOT road, but the fact is that it's really owned by MWRD. So how things connect and everything, it's a question. This, for instance, is an old bridge going across
Yes.
here. I think they tried to sell it to us. It's kind of like buying the Brooklyn Bridge. You don't want it.
Bridge to nowhere now.
Yeah, so they can keep it.
If you want it now, we'll sell it again.
That's right. So it's a lifetime maintenance issue, and nobody wants to take it down. So, but that's why there's oddities.
But the one that I'm only concerned about really is the one west of McCormick. That is not part of this site. It might be part of the overall landmass, but nobody intends to do anything
No,
west of
that's-
McCormick.
has nothing to do with us.
Okay. A different question entirely, as this question of gravel, dust, and paving came up, has the staff looked into the paving? I know that when they were here a couple of years ago now, there was discussion of the screening and the beautification from Oakton so that it wouldn't be an eyesore, and it looks nice, and I've passed dozens of times. Was there any discussion with the staff about improving the site itself?
No, not really. I mean, once you pave it, then you have to meet MWRD requirements for water detention. And so it's a massive undertaking for a leased property, which basically the MWRD can remove them from the site at any time. That's how those leases are usually written. So that would have been excessive. I suppose there might be a possibility to screen along the Vineyard parking lot there. It's pretty well hidden back there. So the question is, would it really be of any benefit? Probably not. It's fenced already, but it's not screened, and the piles that are there right now are 30 to 40 feet high, so it wouldn't make any difference.
And the vineyard, no one has complained to your knowledge to the village?
No.
Okay.
Never.
All right.
And then your question as to why it has a Howard Street address. Our mapping system, we give every vacant lot, every lot gets an address. And so the nearest street is Howard
I see.
Street, so it was given a Howard Street address.
Okay.
It's a stretch, but
Okay, got it.
It's got to go somewhere.
get it somewhere.
Okay.
Any questions of staff on any of the cases? Okay, thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Okay, Counselor, if you. I just want to,
I'm happy.
I'll just find out from you, I just want to make sure you're happy, I just want to make sure
I,
you look at all
well,
the, all the conditions and you're.
with that one change,
With the change.
we accept all the conditions that are in the report.
Okay,
Just again, to verify once more what Commissioner Berman has, when we submitted a survey that just showed the two lots on either side, the two parcels on either side of the tracks, specifically with nothing else, and the legal description for the notices, the legal description that would be part of the ordinance, just encompasses those two. I don't want anybody to be concerned that we're creeping into other places, because we're not. MWRD only authorized us to file specifically for those two parcels. They have parcel numbers that are part of the application. So that's what's happening there. I think Peter answered it very correctly. We start paving too much of the site, now we have to make improvements that we're actually not sure how long. At the end of the day, MWRD can just take this away. That's the way their leases are. We hope that's not the case. They haven't done that to us as it is, but it does work. And I welcome anybody to go out on the site. I went out there in high season when the new site was operating, and there was no dust. I mean, you can trust me or not trust me. I mean, that's your call. But we actually had your village manager out there to show him the new operations, and it was amazing. There's no dust. It's actually, I didn't even have to wash my car. Because it's not a good operation. Forget about being what's better for the environment and the neighborhood. You don't want dust getting into the new equipment. It breaks the equipment. It's a real simple solution there, is you don't want that. So if things get real dry, so you go through a real dry spell and stuff starts to pick up, you water it down so it doesn't happen. You don't want it on the trucks. You also don't want complaints as stuff starts to track out onto the street. Well, we don't have complaints. I mean, the village would hear about the complaints and they'd be calling us. That hasn't happened. So we appreciate your concern. That's what I'm trying to share with you. We have the same concern. We don't want to create an issue that A, causes people to complain, and B, that actually causes us problems. So with that, we hope that you would recommend approval on all of these special uses. Again, on the parking determination, I think the case has been made that, and this is decided, as pointed out by the chairman, that this is decided by your board, that we really don't need parking because it's part of another use that in and of itself has parking. It's the same employees. Thank you very much.
thank you. Is there anybody in the audience who wish to comment or have a question on these cases? Yes, would you please come up? Yeah, just come up to the podium and give us your name and address, please.
Which one over here?
Right up to the microphone, please,
Okay.
yes.
My name is Davida Grossman. I live 4356 Foster Street in Skokie, and I have numerous concerns about the whole thing. But my one issue with this, I can't believe that there's not going to be pollution in the air from dust. And so I'm really concerned about that, and not just for myself, but for all the residents in that area.
Well, they've been operating for 2 years there, and no one's complained. And, you know, I only ask because since they're expanding their operation, if the expansion would create dust, and they said they wouldn't. And we've had our, like the council said, we've had our village manager walk the site, and I guess he seems to be pretty comfortable with the fact that there isn't much dust generated. I mean, there's gonna be dust, but,
Does he have allergies?
well, everybody has
I mean,
allergies.
everybody has allergies,
Sure.
and the more that's thrown into the air is bad. And I just feel that, it's a concern.
Well, it is a concern, and we'll monitor it, for sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Should I just stand here? Because I have more issues. No,
Yes.
I'll just, okay.
Okay. Do you want to give us your name and address? Would you like,
And did you have
Yep.
more issues concerning this plant?
Yes.
Or about other issues of the night?
About other issues of the night.
not related?
I'll come up.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who has a question or comment on these cases? No? Okay. Well, I'm open for a motion. First case for motion would be 2018-12P, the site plan approval at 3219 Oakton, and with the, as amended by the staff. Commissioner Berman? So moved. To approve.
To approve, yes.
Commissioner Lexpati, thank you. Call for the vote. Commissioner Mitchell. Aye. Commissioner Quain.
Aye.
Commissioner Berman.
Aye.
Commissioner Velages.
Aye.
Commissioner Lexpati.
Aye.
Commissioner Matei.
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. And the parking determination, case 2018-13P. Commissioner Mitchell.
Concur.
Concur with staff. Commissioner Lexpati. Okay. Call for the vote. Commissioner Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Quain.
Aye.
Commissioner Berman.
Aye.
Commissioner Velages.
Aye.
Commissioner Lexpati.
Aye.
Commissioner Matei.
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. In case 2018-14P, the special use permit for outdoor storage at 3240 Howard Street. Commissioner Lexpati? Anybody? Commissioner Velages, thank you. Call for the vote. Commissioner Mitchell?
Aye.
Commissioner Quain?
Aye.
Commissioner Berman?
Aye.
Commissioner Velages?
Aye.
Commissioner Lexpati?
Aye.
Commissioner Matei? And I'll vote aye. And finally, in case 2018-15P, also special use permit for outdoor storage at 3219 Oakton and the ever elusive 3240 Howard Street, and as amended by staff. Now, do I have a Commissioner Lexpati? Commissioner Mitchell, thank you. Okay, call for the vote. Commissioner Mitchell?
Aye.
Commissioner Quain?
Aye.
Commissioner Berman?
Aye.
Commissioner Velages?
Aye.
Commissioner Lexpati?
Aye.
Commissioner Matei? And I'll vote aye. And these cases are approved. Good luck to you, and these cases, as these cases go through the system, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the board meeting.
We thank both staff and the commission for their careful consideration of this matter. We hope we've been good neighbors and will continue to be good neighbors. Peter, when would this go before the board?
I couldn't tell you.
All right, I'll follow up with you on this.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. This wasn't quite as exciting as a case as the last one I had before you, which was the 12-story building at the corner down the road.
Yes,
But
yes.
I will argue that this is equally as important because we're helping pave the roads in Skokie as we speak today. But again, thank you very much.
My standing is that every case is important to the petitioner.
That is true. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next case tonight is case 2018-16P, site plan approval at 9504 Lowell. And this is for Clearbrook requests a site plan approval for a congregate living facility with 6 bedrooms in an R1 single-family zoning district. Is the petitioner here?
I'm here.
Yes, can I have your name, please?
My name's Dave Boggs. I'm representative of Clearbrook. We're located at 1835 West Central Road in Arlington Heights.
Okay, and ma'am, you're,
I'm Shana
Inter-
Ehrenberg.
again, please.
I'm Shana Ehrenberg. I'm the executive director of Libanu.
Okay, can I swear both of you in? Do you affirm that testimony you give tonight is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth to help you?
Yes.
Thank you. Counselors, is there notice and order?
Their notice is proper and correct.
Thank you. Okay, why don't you give us an overview of your
Sure.
proposal?
Clearbrook is a not-for-profit agency. We've been around for about 60 years. We work with individuals with developmental disabilities, things like autism, mild mental retardation, Down syndrome. In my role, I operate homes in the community. We don't operate institutions. We do small homes. This particular home is actually long-term Skokie residents, 6 ladies with developmental disabilities who previously lived in a different home that they rented in Skokie. Like any other person, home ownership's a beautiful thing. We had an opportunity to move out of a rental unit and purchase a home, so that's what we're proceeding with. So we have these 6 ladies that live together. They've created themselves a little family. They're all from this area, many from Skokie, their families, others from very close surrounding suburbs. Our partnership is with Libanu Foundation. The Libanu Foundation had approached Clearbrook about 6-7 years ago, wanting to partner with an existing agency. They're a not-for-profit that works with individuals with disabilities in the Jewish community. And they said, we would like to partner with you because you're experts on running homes for our residents or for our family members. And so that's where the partnership was born. We're asking for a special use permit to get approval for this home on Lowell Avenue.
Well, who owns the property?
It is the Libanu Foundation.
Right, so Libanu owns the homes, and we provide the oversight for the Jewish content and Jewish life. Clearbrook is our service provider, takes care of paperwork, service, staff, and we work with a pretty close collaborative relationship. It's actually been 9 years.
Goes quickly.
Time flies. Our ladies lived previously about a block and a half away on Tripp. We had a Scylla there. And our long-term landlords wanted to sell the property, so we looked and we found this home close by. The women, as Dave said, many of them are Skokie residents, have lived here forever. Attended schools here and so on. They are really part of the community. They attend synagogue, they go to Jewel and go shopping, they're at Old Orchard, they go to Weber Leisure Center, the library. They voted in the last election.
So they're pretty active.
They're pretty active, yeah. And they're really lovely, wonderful young women.
What is your long-term goal for this property? Let's say these 6 women, as they pass on, what will you do with the property?
You know, they're all very young women. They're all like in their late 20s, early 30s. We have a very long waiting list of people coming up in the community. We also, in addition to the homes that we run, we have a respite program where we provide after-school care for younger children with disabilities. 10, 11, some of them are 4 and 5, so they're going to be coming up. So I anticipate that, we're going to be long-term tenants there, and
I
that's our
currently
goal.
operate 50 homes.
Yeah,
under
let me clarify.
Sure.
I was under the assumption that it was elderly ladies, which, that's my mistake. But these ladies, let's say they move on, or they progress to the next stage, or whatever happens, and there's vacancies. What happens to the vacancy?
So typically what happens if we have a vacancy, and you can speak to that as well, we look to see who on our waiting list is compatible, who is suitable to be living in a home like that.
Okay.
Right? We're very careful and we screen very carefully. We want to make sure that we don't have any clients with behaviors that are not manageable. They really have to be able to live fairly independently. Even though there's a lot of supervision, they have to have daily living skills. They have to, we're looking at things. Most of them are working or else in a day program during the day. So we screen pretty carefully, and we do that jointly. So then if they're the next person, if we ever have a vacancy, which I is kind of unlikely, but when the time comes that we do, we would look to see who is on the list, but that who's compatible. So the unique thing I think about our organization is that we're very person-centered, and we don't want to just put someone in because there's an empty bed. They really have to gel with the folks who are living there, and our ladies have been together a number of years now, and they really are pretty close-knit, so.
Now, would you go over the staffing that you have at this location?
Sure. You want to talk about staffing?
Sure. How we staff our homes, we do it on shift staff. So the 6 ladies are the only residents in the actual home. Nobody lives there other than them. We are staffed anytime people are home. Generally speaking, all of our folks are gone from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., whether it's school or work or something similar to that. They utilize day programs in the area, so they're gone during the day, so we don't have staff during that time. We have shift staff the rest of the time. So that works out to about 138 hours on a weekly basis. That's, the entire week minus 9 to 3, Monday through Friday. The shift staff come in. We generally have one on. If we have a special activity, we may have 2. We retain 1 van at the site for the ladies, and then the other parking consideration would be the 1 staff person's car. And on the property, we have a lip as well as a 2.5-car garage.
Do you have any contingencies for, let's say, if one of the ladies falls ill, like, flu or a cold, and needs to stay home for the day? Do you have someone to cover that?
Absolutely. We have shift staff that we could call in if nobody's available. There's a manager for the home that I would direct to go in.
Okay. Commissioner Quain.
I'm assuming this is a better home, a better option than the rental on Trip, and that's why you're electing
Absolutely.
to move?
6 ladies, and we were a little bathroom challenged, which could
Okay.
be a challenge with 6 ladies living together. We also wanted more living space, so no different than anyone else. And I think also for the long term, financially for the organization, for Libanu, it's better for them to own. If it's better for Libanu, it's better for the ladies because then they have consistent supports.
And the 50 homes that you operate, they're in the general vicinity, or?
Yeah, Clearbrook was based out of Arlington Heights originally, but our homes I go as far west as McHenry, where we just opened, far north as Lake Bluff, as far south with our Libanu homes in Rogers Park, and then out east to the lake. So, yeah, all in the general Chicago area.
Any questions?
Question about Libanu.
Yes.
You had said homes, you had said plural. How many homes does Libanu own or rent, and where are they?
So we own 3 homes. We have a 2-flat on 2E in West Rogers Park. So we consider that 2 separate units, although it's one physical building. And we have our original home on Mozart and like North Shore, Mozart and Pratt. And it's the same type of thing. We work very hard with the community to make sure that we're educating people so our clients can be included and really can participate. And they do, and it's amazing and wonderful. So those are we're very small, but we wanted to have what we think is the best service provider in the state. So.
Okay. Good. Any other questions for the petitioner? Okay. Anything else you want to add, or if not, we'll have the staff report.
I think we really work hard to be good neighbors and responsive neighbors, and they're really lovely young women.
Good. Thank you.
We work very hard to make certain they're not institutions, but just small family homes.
I think this is good for them. Yeah, I feel this is a good situation for them. Peter? We'll have the staff give us a report, and we'll have you come back up.
I ask that the staff report be entered into the record.
So granted.
Staff recommends approval based on positive findings of fact and conditions. As you see in the staff report, there are numerous conditions from the fire department, and these facilities are alarmed, they're taken care of, they're inspected twice a year, so they really operate well. In this situation, the site plan approval, there's nothing that would cause any adverse conditions to the neighborhood. The report indicates a 3.5-car garage. It's actually a 3-car garage and a pad that's next to it, so it doesn't really show properly, but you can see it up there. There's a little pad next to the garage. So the parking requirement for the building is more than exceeded. And 6 bedrooms, 6 persons, it meets requirements.
Okay, does the health department have jurisdiction in this case?
Yes.
They do.
They'll inspect it. Fire and building will go in there, property standard.
And of course, it's state licensed.
Yes.
Okay.
Can't open until you have the state license, and then we have to make sure.
Any questions of the staff?
Yes.
Yes.
I remember when last we discussed a home like this, the discussion was how many homes do we have in Skokie, and at what proximity are they to each other?
Okay. I couldn't tell you right offhand. I know we have quite a few. This is not the same. Most of them are group homes, and they're less than 4 bedrooms, 4 or less. This one is greater, so we have very few of them that are actually congregate living facilities. The previous one that we had was actually this group who was at a different location that was approved, I think, 3 years ago or so. And as they indicated, the lease was up and they wanted to sell the house, so they moved to this location. They looked for several locations in the village, and this one really works out very well with minimal modifications to make it work. But I would say that there's only 2 or 3 of them that are actually congregate living facilities like this.
I am not unhappy with this facility or with anyone individually. My concern has to do with an overall zoning concern in the entire village. So I'm not satisfied yet with your answer of quite a few. Are we talking group homes, congregate homes, institutional homes in residential neighborhoods? Are we talking more or less than 20, more or less than 50?
Less than 50, more than 20.
Okay, between 20 and 50 in the entire Skokie community. And is there a tipping point, because the petitioner brings research to us that says that there's no deleterious effect to surrounding areas, but they don't say to surrounding properties. So is there research that the staff has done concerning tipping point of surrounding property, adjacent property, across the street property, surrounding community?
Well, a couple of years back, we did have a amendment to the ordinance. And at that time, we had experts provide testimony. And basically, there is no adverse effect on neighboring property. That's been found out in numerous cases. Usually, these homes are, put in places where they don't have nice neighborhoods like us. They put them in neighborhoods where they're not so nice. And unfortunately, the people often become victims of the neighborhood. In this case, Skokie is a very fine environment. And the people in these group homes, they thrive in this community, and they're welcome. So it's not really been an issue. And if you're asking about crime and stuff, yes, they just like any other home, they would have incidents, but they're not unusual or beyond what's normal in any kind of a
My concern, and the reason for my questions isn't about crime, it isn't about immediate adjacency. It's about a tipping point that a community must reach. There must be some tipping point beyond 50, beyond 100, where the entire community can't absorb that many institutional uses in its residential streets.
Right, and the state has established a distance between homes, and the village has a distance between
Tell us about
homes.
that for a moment.
I don't remember it right offhand because this is not one of those homes. It's outside that category. But Property Standards Division, whenever a group comes in and wants a license for a home, it's always checked, the distances. We always put it on our GIS system. We have them all mapped. We know where they're at. And we make sure that they do not violate the code. If you go below that distance, it used to be like 1 block away or something like that, then they must come in for site plan approval and go through a public hearing process for that approval. We had a situation a couple years ago where somebody purchased a property that was across the alley from another one, and they were here for a public hearing. It never was established. So I'm sorry I don't have the exact figure about the distance, but I can certainly send it out to everybody. It's in our zoning code, and it's very clear, and we always enforce it.
I guess another perspective on tipping point that's been raised with me by others, it's just the nonprofit aspect to the home ownership. And for example, if those 50 homes were in one particular school district, then those homeowners in that school district will probably feel the impact of that, as opposed to a scattering among other taxing bodies, so to speak.
Sure.
So that's another perspective on tipping point.
Yeah.
This will not be paying real estate taxes.
No, they're nonprofit. Of course, then you have to compare the 30 homes or so that we have compared to all the land that MWRD has, all the school district, park district, and all the other public properties that are in town, that they're really very minor in total.
Okay, any other questions?
One more question.
Yes.
You said that this one is outside of that guideline of how far it can be to another home because it's of a different category. What other home of that different category is near to this home?
Well, I can tell you, and maybe the petitioners can say, originally, they came in as a regular group home. And so Terry O'Lean, our property standards person, checked the distance at that time, and at that time, that location met the requirements.
It was outside of whatever
Yes,
the
it was.
guideline is for proximity.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Would you please come back up and? So you've heard the staff report, you've heard the comments. Anything you want to add, and are you agreeable with the conditions that have been laid out by the staff?
Oh, yes. I mean, we've been working pretty closely with the village through this whole process. I can answer that question for you. It is 1,000 feet from property line to property line. That's the minimum. So when we were looking for different properties, and as I said, we really worked closely with Pete and with Terry and with Michael. That was the first thing we did, was we checked the addresses.
A fifth of a mile, a little more
Yeah,
than a block.
yeah.
Absolutely. That's a state requirement. They keep a database. What we are running is known as a community integrated living arrangement. The first thing I have to do is reach out to Department of Human Services when we're looking at a property and run that address to make certain that there are no other SILAs in the area. And those SILAs encompass both DD SILAs and MI SILAs, working with folks with mental health issues. That's something that we don't do, but those group homes are checked as well when they do the check.
I have a question. Now, does Clearbrook responsible for like cutting the lawn, the bushes, and
I think that's an excellent question.
yeah,
We
and
get
snow
many-
removal?
Absolutely. We try very hard to be good neighbors because people get nervous when we first come in. We understand that. So we work very hard. We bring in a service to cut the lawn. We have a service that comes in and does the snow shoveling for us. The outside of our home, that's very important to us, how it looks. It's our goal to disappear in the community. We don't want to be identified as a group home. We want to be identified as a family. These ladies have, a lot of challenges in their life. We do everything we can to integrate them in the communities as seamlessly as possible. And part of that is being an excellent neighbor.
Good, thank you. Any other questions of the petitioners?
One more.
Yes.
Did the prior home that you operated here in Skokie on Trip that you're moving from, did that have any complaints against it from neighbors?
No.
Good, thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, is there anybody, please come up.
Good evening. My name is Morton Weiner. I live directly across the street at 9519 Lowell. Before we start, I want to make a correction to something that I was told by the mayor a number of years ago. I was president of B'nai Amunah, and we came before this council a number of years ago regarding converting part of our property for residential, which would have taken from a non-taxable status to a taxable status. And my argument with the mayor at that time was, why would the village not accept a conversion from non-taxable to taxable? And his answer to me was that the real estate tax base in the village of Skokie was fixed a number of years ago, and that amount has stayed either constant or has some variable upon a constant figure. And whether the property is taxable or non-profitable does not affect the village of Skokie in any way other than the library district. The school district and the other districts do not get any more money if the property is converted from one to the other. That's what I was told a number of years ago by the mayor directly. Now, regarding this project here and this site,
Excuse me, to correct the record, because it shouldn't sit like that, whether you heard it that way or whether that was what was said, that is not correct. So now we'll move on.
Okay.
Once property becomes taxable, it then increases the tax base for whatever the taxing district is, be it village, school, forest
the
preserve,
mayor's told me
county
that-
hospital, whether it's so or not. So we can't let you say that's what is the
okay,
situation.
that's what I'm saying, it was told to me.
I think it must be corrected one more time, though.
Okay.
For school districts, park districts, and the library district, it does make a difference on when they increase their levy. On the other hand, for the village, since we only collect a certain dollar amount for the last 20 years or 20-plus years, it really does not make a difference to the village. However, overall, it affects everybody's taxes when more land goes off the tax rolls or the value of land increases. So
Well,
it affects
I
other
think the mayor
people.
may have been speaking about the village.
Yes.
Plus minus taxes is very important.
Well, that I
You wouldn't
understand.
necessarily see a decrease in taxes
I
because it
understand.
added
I'm
to
an
the
accountant,
tax.
I understand that. Okay, as my role as a resident across the street, and that's why I came to the meeting primarily, I'm not sure whether or not this facility was occupied earlier in the year, but I do recall before the Jewish holidays in December, seeing lights on in the house and seeing religious candles lit on Friday night and Hanukkah menorah lit during the holiday of Hanukkah. I found that to be very pleasant because it's part of my religion and it's part of my belief. I also found that these people, while they were there, and I don't know how long they were there and whether they were there permanently for a period of time or not, they did not make an effect upon the neighborhood. I did not see any disturbances of people rushing or going in and out of there. I did see the van parked out in front, and it was parked no differently than any other vehicle. It was not parked irregular or creating an issue. We have more than adequate number of parking spaces on the street because many of the houses have garages, so there aren't that many cars parked on the street. Yesterday, my wife came home and saw a young woman standing outside the house, and she stopped to talk to her. And this young girl that my wife spoke to must be one of the women that is going to be a resident there. And my wife found this woman to be very pleasant and very nice. I don't think that this facility will stand out as being any different than any other home on our block or in our neighborhood. I have seen during the winter that the property has been maintained, the snow has been shoveled. I noticed that there is always a light on in front of the house, which I think is a good thing. It makes it look like there's somebody living there, even though for a good portion of this time, I know that the house has been vacant. In the last month or maybe 2 months, the house has been vacant, but the light has always been on there, indicating that it looks like it's being lived in. So the house doesn't look dilapidated, and it doesn't look that it's in poor condition. I've lived on that street since 1964. I saw that house when it was a single-family home, one story, with 2 bedrooms. I saw it when it was remodeled and they put a second floor on the house. The contractor that did it also did some work for me afterward. I saw it when the house was sold and then converted to what it appears to be today, and it was done well. And the people who did the work did a good job on it, so it's a sound, well-built house. I saw the house by the previous owner. I took a look inside the house. He took me in to show me around. It looked like it was a well-maintained facility. Looking in through the window, which you know, as you drive by, you can see that the house doesn't appear to have changed. They have not destroyed the atmosphere inside the house. I'm not disturbed by having these people here, and I am not upset by it. I think this would be good for our community. It'd be good for the people. One of the comments that was made was that these people are religious and they attend the services at the synagogue, which is only less than a block away. It's at the far end of the street on the same side of the street. I think that that's nice. I think that makes it easier for them if they are religious and they can't drive on the Sabbath. That this way it's convenient for them. They can walk there. I don't see a problem with it, and I would, if I had a right to vote as one of my neighbors, and I've talked to a couple of them, I would say have them here because they'll make good neighbors.
Okay.
Thank you for
Thank you
your
for your comments. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Please come up.
My name is still the same, Davida Grossman, 4356 Foster Street. This is my husband, Norm. And I would like to debate this gentleman before me.
This is our house right here.
Yes. And we know the neighbors that lived in that house before. The house has been empty for almost a year. They were very noisy and rude and always dumped their garbage in our garbage cans. I am an ex-social worker. I worked for a homeless shelter. I worked for 25 plus years in nursing homes, and I worked for various disabilities, and I know what it takes to have a group home, and that's what I call it, because that's what it is, a group home. Because I worked in a transitional shelter, both in Park Ridge and in Niles. So I understand that people with disabilities have to have a place to live, and I understand it. But this is a single-family area, and I feel that it should remain that. And I just feel that, I know when we had problems in the shelter, there were so many problems. Now these women who have disabilities may have feminine problems and throw things down the sewers, and we have enough problems with our sewers. So I feel that it's going to cause more problems in that area. I don't mind them living or working in the area, but I do mind the situations that may occur because of that, and the property be maintained like the rest of the property around us. When we moved in a couple of years ago, we thought we were going to live in a residential area. We lived on Potter and Golf, which was very noisy and rude. We had 2 grandsons that was living with us, and we wanted proper schools for them. So I would like a residential family to move into that house. And I'm sorry, I do have heart for people who have disabilities, and I've worked with older people. I've worked with people in the homeless shelter who had various problems, and I'm really against this. I don't know how, I really haven't gone around to other areas. I would have gone to house by house, but I haven't been feeling well. So, and I've done it before, and where I have been, if something was not right, tried to correct it. So, I mean, my feeling is I just resent this fact that this group home will be there. After purchasing a home, and my taxes will be going up because of it, and we're just elderly people trying to hold on to a house that we had bought for ourselves and our grandsons, and I really feel really disappointed. And I probably will not win this, but at least I can vent the way I feel. And I am a social worker, and I do care about people, and I've cared about people for 30 plus years. So I'm sorry, but that's how I feel.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
The only thing I have to say about this.
You have your name, please?
Norman Grossman. Davita's my husband, my wife. I'm the husband.
Yeah, and I'm
Okay. Wife. Okay. The only thing I say about the parking in the alley is they have to be very careful about parking their cars in the wintertime there, the vehicles, because of the fact that it's stone. And when the ice and stuff comes in there, they're not going to be able to easily park their vehicle like they are now. Because the van comes in and out through there on the stone. And when you have ice there and it's a narrow alley pulling in, she works very hard to get her vehicle in there, and she does a very good job of it. We're right behind.
Yeah,
We can see into the house, that house, because we're higher than they are. So we see them pulling in. She does a very good job of parking in there. It's going to be much harder in the wintertime. That's all I have to say about it. And
what about the children? The children, are they going to be?
There's nothing about children living there.
Are they going to just be cared for there, or?
There's no children.
I heard her say.
there could be, I didn't hear
No.
her say anything about children.
Six adults.
Yeah, but you said that there may be,
No, we have an after-school program somewhere else for children.
okay,
Got nothing to do with this.
That has nothing to do with children.
okay.
So those are the only things that I have to do. And we have had problems with the sewers when it rains and stuff like that. There could have to be, the facilities have to be checked more often than otherwise. Because my wife has worked at facilities in women's
Sewer
shelters.
backups,
and the
I'm
sewer-
telling you,
and
was
the-
pretty
and
awful.
The sewer situations get very bad in these facilities when they're not maintained if there's nobody there to watch them all the time. So
Okay.
my wife has that problem with, she's dealt with the facilities, she's worked with the facilities and had to live with the problems with the sewer backups. So that's all,
All right.
that is her concern.
Okay,
Is there
thank
going to
you.
be counseling in that situation too?
No,
for the-
would you just speak to us?
Yeah.
Okay,
Then we'll ask-
okay. Is there going to be counseling for these women? Are they going to teach them
I'm sure they'll.
life
they'll-
living
they'll-
skills?
I'm sure they'll
and-
meet every need that.
We'll ask all those,
Yeah.
we'll ask all those questions that you're asking
Right.
when the petitioner comes up in a second.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Or the petitioner will address.
Can we have you come up again, please? Do you have any answers for their concerns, or?
Sure. First of all, I have no doubt that you care very much for folks with disabilities. You've dedicated your life to that. We also would say that we respect your passion for your neighborhood. One of the things we love about Skokie is people are involved. The community has been great to us, and we certainly appreciate when people have concerns. And I hope we're given the chance to become wonderful neighbors for you. In regard to the sewage problems, we work very hard with our staff to make certain that we maintain the homes. I can assure you that all of our whenever the ladies are home, they are supervised by staff. Our overall goal is to provide training for individuals so they become as independent as possible. So they will receive quite a bit of counseling, both on-site and in some of their day programs, so absolutely.
I just want to comment also, because I know you've had experience with shelters. These are not the folks that were living in shelters. These are young women who were raised in homes in Skokie, Jewish homes in Skokie. They went to Niles, they went to Keshet, they've really been part of this community. We're always teaching daily living skills, but I can tell you that every morning they have to make their bed, they have to keep their rooms clean, they have chores that they have to do in the house, and I happen to be insane about coming by and enforcing that.
I can attest for that.
Yes, he can. Yes, he can. They've got to wash the floors. They've got to keep the bathrooms clean. We are on top of maintenance. We share maintenance responsibilities, and so we're on top of that all the time. Our maintenance person is there every week checking things out. So we're really pretty careful about all of that. I appreciate the warning about the ice in the winter. We'll keep an eye out for that. And I think, truthfully, we would love to have you come over and meet our ladies and maybe come for dinner and get to know us, and you'll see we're terrific neighbors. We really are.
All right, thank you. Maybe you can talk with them after the meeting.
Sure.
Okay?
Any other questions for us?
Any other questions? Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. I am ready for a motion on case 2018-16P, site plan approval at 9504 Lowell. Commissioner Matei, Commissioner Lexpati, thank you. Yeah, call for the vote. Commissioner Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Quinn.
Aye.
Commissioner Berman.
Aye.
Commissioner Velazquez.
Aye.
Commissioner Lexpati.
Aye.
Commissioner Matei.
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. This case still has to go before the Board of Trustees. If you wish to be notified when this case comes before, give us your name and address. We'll send you notice. You can go to that meeting also, okay? Anything else before the board?
One thing before we
Yes.
adjourn, let me thank all of you for your expression of condolences on behalf of my mother and my family.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, she'll be missed.
Thank you.
Any other concerns? Okay. This meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.